the plan should be
of something that already exists than completely inventing something new. So thank you.
I have a question. Is there a certain timeline that you're looking for recommendations for either of these items?
Well, again, as this is a new board, I think you folks need time to have the dialogue between yourselves on how to best handle it. So today was really more of a presentation. And again, the board may want to take some time to think about it. Because of the sunshine law, the discussion, does need to take place between all the board members in the open, unless you appoint a permitted interaction group. Then what that group, you'll hear them called PIGs. The permitted interaction group is appointed during an open meeting, and they can go off and they can do their assigned work outside of a public meeting, but then they come back and report to the full board at the public meeting, and then the full board would take action after that. So it gives you the flexibility to set up a working group if that's the way you want to do it.
Other questions for or any discussion that you guys would like to have on this topic?
I have one question, Director. Can you kind of explain the difference between a committee and a permitted interaction group in terms of legality and what they're able to do versus a committee?
So the committees that the board has set up, the program committee and the maintenance committee, are formal arms and sunshined operations of this board. So you have, those meetings would have to be noticed. They would be open to the public. There would be public testimony. They can take action as a committee and make a recommendation. That recommendation goes back to the full board, but they can take action. A permitted interaction group is not sunshine. It's allowed under the sunshine law because it's restricted. It cannot take action. It can only come back and report to the full board, and it can only work on the scope that it's been given. But then those meetings do not have to be publicly noticed. They do not have to have public participation, although they can. If they want to have an aspect of gathering public input, they can certainly do that. But it does allow for a sunshine governed organization like this board to have some work done in a more efficient manner that comes back to the full board and is followed up on honoring the sunshine law.
Thank you.
Just to do a temperature check with the other board members, would you guys want to do a permitted interaction group? Yeah, okay. I think that would be good. Okay. So if everyone was good with that, maybe my recommendation, would it be something we need to take a vote on?
The board would need to create the permitted interaction group and then give it the instructions on what to do. And so you may want to do, well, up to you whether you'd want to do one or two. But I think you would, if you want to do that at today's meeting, you would ask for volunteers to be involved, direct them to follow through with the requests, work with the department on developing the board recommendations in detail, and then to come report back at the next meeting with the recommendations.
Okay. Yes, Judith.
A related question: are department members permitted to be on those interaction groups, or is it just board members?
Well, you're the ones governed by the sunshine law. So yeah, the direction would be for you folks to work with us, and you could work as permitted interaction group with other organizations as well.
Okay, because it seems important that someone from the department who has insight into those two topics would be available to the PIG, I think.
We're not shoving you in the deep end of the pool to figure this out.
Sounds
You'll definitely
scary.
participate.
Would the rest of the board members be open to doing a permitted interaction group with the first mandate of just discussing the structure and how we tackle these items and then how we want to framework it out with the department?
Or would there be two?
Well, I'm just thinking maybe we can meet as independently just to talk through what, because it sounds to me a lot of this would be logistical and scheduling wise, because we have the additional committees that we are committing to. So just wanting to be cognizant of people's time and how we manage it. Maybe we could discuss first the framework of how we do this, and then we can decide, if we want to recommend that we break it into two separate committees, additional committees, or if it's going to be two permitted interaction groups or whatever it might be, or part of, as Director Thielen mentioned, an assignment to the committees that they work on and then report back to the larger group on too. Would that make sense?
So, sorry, I just want to get clarification.
Sure.
So we're creating a permitted interaction group to discuss how we're going to create permitted interaction groups.
And then we'll discuss how to permit that. No, I think the goal would be to have a separate meeting through a permitted interaction group to discuss the structure, plan, and what makes best sense for all of us in terms of how we want to tackle this.
So that we don't have to do that right now.
Right.
In a board meeting with sunshine notice.
Correct.
Yeah. Excuse me, I did just was advised that I think the maximum number of members that could be on the permitted interaction group is 5.
Okay. All right. Well, who would like to be the 5 that would like to volunteer for this important endeavor? I will volunteer. as chair.
I'll volunteer also.
Okay. Okay. So is that 1, 2, 3, 4? Anyone else want to join? Judith?
Well, I'm more just, I guess, confused why, we wouldn't just form the 2 pigs right away for each, you know what I mean? And then within the volunteers could get organized rather than, but that's just.
That's a
me,
good
so,
question. The
like,
only reason I was thinking we do the structural question is more if we wanted to tackle them within a committee that's already existing, or if we want to tackle them separately. And I guess that would be the main crux. I just want to be conscientious of people's schedules, because if we go, it sounds like if we have 2 permitted interaction groups plus the 2 committees, that means 2 additional meetings per person that's committing to that. So, which is fine, but I just want to make sure that we have that discussion and everyone feels good with that.
And then Director, just to clarify, so does a permitted interaction group have a life, or does it end when that task is completed automatically?
They do have a life. You don't have to, I don't think you don't have to identify the termination date at this point, but basically they have to report back to the board. So you could have a permitted interaction group to be discussing, how and what you would want to do with these 2 requests. And then at the next full board meeting in April, have them report back with the recommendations.
Yeah.
And at that point, if the board wanted to continue, it could give further direction to permitted interaction groups, or it could terminate it. And then if you wanted to set up separate ones, you could.
So a potential way we could structure the permitted interaction group that we're starting is to evaluate it, discuss, to look at the requests that the department's providing and how we would want to address them, what support we would need from the department, and then how we would structurally want to respond to that in terms of our meetings and where it sits to have that discussion.
Yeah, I think that's a great plan. I think with the understanding that we would like a lot of this work to live in the committee structure since it already exists, but that initial meeting seems important. If Judith wants to be the 5th member, I wholeheartedly endorse. If not, I will take that 5th spot.
I'm sorry, now I'm getting advised. It's 4. I think it has to be a less than quorum.
So we have the group.
We have the group, so 1, 2, and 4. Okay. Okay, so yes.
Yes.
And then do we need to take a formal motion? Yeah. So can I have a motion, I guess?
So moved.
Okay.
they will be doing,
Okay.
and then when you need them to report back.
Can I, as the chair, say that, or do we? Okay, so what we're moving forward with is a permitted interaction group that will allow the board members, some of the board members, 4 of our board members, to get together to look at the proposed priority items that the department is providing, evaluate them, and discuss as a group how we would like to both respond to that and structurally how we want to schedule the meetings for that to look at that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Okay, with no opposition, we're gonna move forward with that motion and move on to the next agenda item. Okay, so agenda item number 4. Director Thienen?
My esteemed deputy director will take the lead on this one.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, aloha, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Parks Board. My name is Keho Pu'u. I'm the Deputy Director of DPR. And so I am here today to talk about agenda item number 4 regarding our desire to ask the board, regarding our request to ask the board to assign the development of data-informed measures of program quality and program development to the Board of Parks and Recreation Program Committee. So first, I want to mahalo you folks for establishing both the maintenance and the programs committee at your last meeting. And at that meeting, Laura went through our goals, some of our goals for our department. And so specifically for program committee, we offer programs, citywide programs, in both of our divisions, our division of urban forestry and our division of park maintenance and recreation services. But what we would like to focus on for the programs committee is a focus on our recreation programs. So I'll just give a little bit of an overview, well, just a little bit of information. In 2021, DPR began efforts to refresh and revitalize our recreation programs. We developed a new vision and mission statements and created kind of what we call our recreation refresh plan. And this plan has been created to guide our efforts towards achieving our vision. And I have a copy of it, which I'll ask Lori to pass out to you folks. But the vision is that DPR Recreation Services, thank you, promotes excellence by providing relevant and innovative programs and services for our communities and beyond. We foster meaningful connections that are mutually beneficial through internal and external collaborations. So there's a lot in that vision and our mission statements, which you'll see in the document, basically tell of the goals of our department, of this division. And so we have already begun working on some of these goals, which include 1, developing program outcomes. We want to be able to articulate the impact of our programs. And so that's one of the first things that we've done is we've developed 3 very simple, make sense kind of outcomes, health and wellness, a sense of place and community, and leadership. So those are one of the first things we've done. Something else that we are currently working on is planning our programs to be aligned with outcomes versus activities focus. We want to be intentional about the activities that we're offering, the programs, the classes, even the events that we are offering. And so we want to be aligned to our outcomes, again, to be able to articulate our impact, to be able to tell our story, you know, the good things that we do here at DPR, and also to inform ourselves on how we can continue to improve and serve community well. So we have, started to invest in training our staff to be able to provide these kinds of supports towards achieving our vision and goals, and just also to support them as lifelong learners. It's my personal belief that if we are in the business of doing programs, we are teaching and learning, perhaps not in a formal school setting, but the youth that we serve, the adults, the kupuna that we serve, there's teaching and learning that's happening, and hopefully reciprocal. It should be, it is. But we want to continue to be impactful, and so we need to be lifelong learners. And so that's something that we have undertaken, is working on our training and education program. And then a big one for us is being data-driven. Most of the data that we've had to report on in the past has been our enrollment numbers, numbers that we are serving through, I can't remember the PC word, but you know, the TANF, those kinds of students that we're serving. But we wanna, using data is a big one for us. We wanna use data to be able to, again, help tell the story of our impact, improve our, to continuously improve our programs, but also to inform us of what it is that community does need and want. And so this is another huge undertaking for us. Our biggest program is our Summer Fun program, which many of you may be familiar with. I think some of you have gone through the program, as did I. And so this is, we have metrics in the city. All of the departments have these metrics. They're tied to budgeting. One of our metrics is to get back to our pre-pandemic numbers, our enrollment numbers. And so that's yet another thing that we are working on. So what we really want is to seek the expertise, the knowledge, the Ike. Like, we have some pretty amazing members. Well, you're all amazing, so thank you for serving. But you know, the backgrounds, I think, can be very helpful, and so we want to ask again this board to assign this task of helping us, supporting us in getting to our goals, in developing these measures of program quality and development. We want to tap into your knowledge. And so right now, because it seems very, very big and high level, so to make it a little bit more concrete, what we are doing right now, our recreation supervisors, who you will meet soon, are working on a dashboard. And this is something new also for our department. So this is a new muscle that we're building. But I think you folks know, you know, the dashboard, and to help us to help us track, I guess, you know, to use as indicators. And so we're working on a dashboard that would include some of these things, like our enrollment numbers, our hiring. As you know, we are having some challenges in getting our vacancies filled, some of the planning milestones. And so our staff are working on this dashboard to be able to use it as a way to share information with the program committee. And the hope is that in committee, and we will share, I have here some data, enrollment data, student enrollment data from our summer fun programs. I also have a draft of that plan that I talked about, although it's a bit outdated. But anyway, the hope is that in committee, we will be able to share and, you know, engage in dialogue, discussion, get some feedback, some guidance. You know, I remember Katie being asked a question when you went up for city council, and when you went before city council to be approved, and, you know, talking about work-based learning and things like that, those kinds of opportunities. And I think those are just the kinds of ideas and innovations that, you know, we want to learn more about, we want to embrace, we want to influence our staff and ourselves about. So again, my ask is to take it on, please.
Great.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, Deputy Director. All right, well, I would like to open up for any questions or discussions on what Deputy Director presented. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to commend you even for taking a data approach in the dashboard. I know that's something that a lot of nonprofits and a lot of agencies are undertaking, and it can be a little scary. So I congratulate for you. I think that's great. And I think one of the things, as we all go on this data-driven journey, I think one of the things that we're finding is sometimes the data tells a story that we're doing better jobs than we thought, because the assumption can be that data is going to tell a story we don't necessarily want to hear. But particularly within the nonprofit sector, I think it's starting to tell a story of nonprofits really making a difference and telling the story in a different way. So I think that that'll be great. I had a quick question. I mean, part of the data collection and understanding what works. So we obviously on this board have our different experiences, the communities we're a part of. So we're going to be able to hear from the families that we know. But for the communities that we don't, it does strike me that, you know, for the community board structure, or the neighborhood board structure, many of them have parks committees. And I know when I served on the Makiki neighborhood board, that parks committee was quite active. And so just an idea, if we can figure out some sort of structure where those groups can be used as focus groups as we all learn together. And that also, I was reminded of it based on the last testimony we had at the last meeting. So I think that might be a suggestion and also a question on how we're going to incorporate those committees into the process.
Thank you. Yes, I'd love to refocus some of those committees to recreation and the good stuff we do there. A lot of times they're very focused on maintenance.
Yes.
Hello.
Thank you. Other questions or
Yeah,
discussion?
Can I ask just a clarifying question? I see leadership is under construction. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and maybe the direction that you want to see leadership go so that all of this can be fulfilled? Because you need strong leaders to be able to make it go.
So we have, so within our summer fun programs, we have junior leaders who volunteer and work with our summer aides to manage our students. We have our participants, we have teen programs. And so we are doing a lot to, I guess, develop our, and they're actually middle school to high school that we have. So we're doing a lot to develop them. We haven't come to, I guess, identify what are those three big things that we want to do. So there's some work that we have started. It's kind of gone by the wayside, but leadership is so huge. And one of the things we're trying to do is keep things simple, I guess. So it's under construction. We couldn't, there was so much and we couldn't agree, okay, what are like the two or three things that we really want to focus on? And so that's why it's sort of under construction. I think if we did more, I guess, work or with our program directors to really identify and look at what the patterns of practice are across the sites, we'd be able to get clearer on what those are.
Mhm.
If I can chime in, at the parks, the program committee, the people who are going to be doing the presentation on the dashboard are the recreation supervisors and the complex area superintendents who will be there. So I think in these conversations, it'll get the wheels turning in their minds. The department has run programs like Summer Fun, the Kapuna clubs, certain ways for many years. And so some of it is getting them to be able to see things in a new light. Coming in, being relatively new myself, I identified junior leaders, teen programs, that's part of what we're doing in Summer Fun. But the figures before were only counting the enrollees, not the youth that were involved in the programs and other means. Similarly, you know, once we have the data-driven kind of the start on the youth side, we do want to take a look at our Kapuna programs as well, and then kind of take a similar but different approach because they're different types of programs. But I think in having that dialogue with the staff who will be the primary presenters during the program committee, you'll get their thinking, and then they'll be able to accelerate some of the things that they'll be able to do because they'll have a better understanding from working with you.
Great. Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I certainly applaud the department for looking beyond just outputs and enrollments and activities, but outcomes as well. And I'm just curious with these three outcomes, how were they developed? Were they developed by staff or in concert with current users of the park, or how was the outcomes?
So these outcomes actually come from Nahopena'a'o, so they're aligned to the DOE's standards, and that was so that, you know, we're all serving the same students, so to be able to support those outcomes as well. Health and wellness was a natural one, so we have a national resources Wait, National Recreation and Parks Association. Who have three pillars, health and wellness being one, equity, and I can't remember the third, but so that one seemed like a natural, well, that, that's the automatic, right, that comes to mind. A sense of place and community is something that we want to strive for. Our parks are, we have almost 400 parks located across the island. Not all of them are staffed, but a lot of them are in areas that have rich history and culture. And so, this is a way to be able to teach and share and learn about that culture, traditional as well as current, what's happening in communities. But it was intentional to align these to Nahopena'a'o. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, because I think, from an educational lens, it makes sense with the youth programs. I'm wondering for the Kapuna programs, that there might be other frameworks that might
Oh, yeah.
lend itself
Yeah,
to
yeah.
appropriate outcomes too. Yeah.
Yeah, we thought, okay, the first two could fit, maybe for the kupuna, I don't know about the third one, but.
Not alignment, but potential other
Yeah.
framework, active aging frameworks.
Mhm. Good
Thank you for the
observation.
question.
Other questions or discussion? Yes. Well, I just wanted to say, thank you to leadership for putting this forth and everything that's being presented today. Everything is a thoughtful reflection on our last board meeting in terms of we developing these committees. What can we prioritize? How can we help you to look at it? And you guys have responded looking at the more strategic items that are really going to provide a lot of traction for the hardworking people at DPR. So thank you guys for putting so much work into these as well too. So with that being said, if there's no other discussion, we'll take a vote on this one as well too. Are we gonna, no need?
Just refer.
Okay, all right, so if, we just want to see if there's any objections to referring this work plan to the committee to follow through with quarterly reports to the full board on the progress and any adjustments or alterations that you see. Please share that now. All right, well, we are full support.
Mahalo, excited, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Committee on Maintenance and Improvements and Community Partnerships. The department will be making presentations on a 5-year work plan for committee and the department to develop a maintenance standards, inspections, and reporting systems beginning in 2024, focusing on athletic fields and trees for the board's considerations. So with that, Director Thielen.
Okay, thank you. So in your board packet, right before the minutes, you'll see a document. It's labeled at the top, City and County Honolulu Department of Parks and Recreation, Board of Parks and Recreation, January 16, 2024. And you'll see there's a little table on the upper right-hand corner that has DPR public recreational facilities with a number on it. So that's in your packet with your agenda and just before the minutes. And this is the proposed 5-year work plan. Dory is passing out some other materials that I'll go over. But look for that table that's up in the upper right-hand side, which has the DPR public recreation facilities. So I inadvertently in this, I've said that our Department of Parks and Recreation is one of the 15 largest park departments in the nation. And most of the other states, the cities and counties are broken up in much smaller geographic areas. But because we're the entire island of Oahu, just when you take a look at the number of people we serve, over 1 million people, we're probably the 10th largest department based on that National Recreation and Park Association data that they have. And the number of facilities, as we work with these other departments, there may be other departments that have the equal number, but we really are one of the largest departments in the nation. when I wrote this, I said we do not have a formalized central maintenance standards inspection and reporting system. I do want to report, we do have a baseline where the parks maintenance section have created a park inspection program. So I'm going to go over some of that today. But what we're looking at is really developing an entire system where it's going to be clear maintenance standards in writing, an inspection system and a reporting system similar to, but not identical to, what the City of San Francisco Department of Recreation and Parks have. So what Dory has passed out is two sets of documents. The first one, which is the maintenance section park inspection program, this is what our department, Administrator Christine Ching for the Parks Maintenance and Recreation Association has put together, along with the help of the maintenance superintendents. And you'll see there are inspection forms to start to have a formalized program in our department for certain types of assets that the department manages. But if you compare that to the second handout that we passed out, it's a park maintenance standard selected highlights fiscal year 2022 through 23 for the city and county of San Francisco. And behind that is the fiscal year 22 park evaluation standards. So what you'll see is the city of San Francisco has developed a formal system. It took them about 10 years to develop this and to put it in place. But they've identified 12 features in a park, and the features are the athletic fields, buildings, children play areas, dog play areas, green space, hardscape lawns, trees, restrooms. Each of these 12 features, they are evaluated for certain elements: cleanliness, the equipment improvements, the signage. But you'll see in the handout, when you get to, and I'm just going to use athletic fields as the example, which is the first page for the San Francisco. Under cleanliness, they will look at 5 different things for athletic field cleanliness that are very specific. So the inspectors will go out and look for this. The maintenance people are trained to be looking for this and to be taking care of it. And it may be things like a hypodermic needle, certain things on the field, large abandoned items, but it's very specific. Fallen trees or limbs, furniture, luggage, tent-like structures, so it's very clear what that means. Grime, filth, soil, or debris buildup. So they've come up with very specific standards for each element and each feature. Again, it took them about 10 years to get to that point, but the benefits of going through a system like this is you're able to train staff on exactly what success is, what clean looks like, what maintenance looks like. You can work with the public on this. The San Francisco has a third-party office, the Office of the Controller, that will go out and do inspections on a quarterly basis. They will inspect for these specific standards. Being San Francisco, of course, they have a database and they probably have all the fancy equipment to go out and do the pictures and GPS it and everything else. But then they have an annual report and a quarterly report. Management within the department can use that quarterly report to make sure that everybody's up to speed and trained and we're doing well and we can identify where to succeed. The public can also use that report to be able to say, is there equitable maintenance being done in the type of park? We often get questions: are the neighborhood parks maintained at the same level that a district park is maintained at, or a regional park? Is it equitable? Are the lower income area parks being maintained at the same standard as the upper income area parks? You can take a look at it for types of maintenance. Do we need to beef up our mowing? Is that an area where we're not doing as well as other areas? And then you can go take a look at why and identify the resources to support it. So what we'd like to do is work with the board, or the maintenance committee, to develop this type of system. Robert Maderos unfortunately was not able to join us today, but we did share this with him. He's the chair of the board's maintenance committee. We're recommending, because we can't, if we try to do everything all at once, it's overwhelming, to focus on two features. One would be athletic fields, because we do get a lot of requests around athletic fields. We also think it's an opportunity to be able to work with the high volume users, the different leagues, to come up with what I'm going to call Kuleana permit conditions. What types of maintenance can they do to help maintain these areas that is getting a high level of use, to keep them in good condition in exchange for having the permit? And then what can the department do? The other feature that we would like to focus on is trees. I know there's some question like, is that conflicting because athletic fields, you don't want trees in athletic fields? But we are we have the Division of Urban Forestry in our department, and parks also are locations where there are, outside of the athletic fields, we want trees to shade activities, to create, nice places for people to come and enjoy. And it is a city climate change goal to be planting more trees. So in addition to the trees in the parks, we want to be working on the maintenance standards for the street trees, because we're managing about 250,000 street trees, and we want to be planting more. So to be able to have something similar, in trees to incorporate those goals, as well as the athletic fields, I think that would give us a broad spectrum of park users to be able to work with in developing a maintenance plan approach. And then the maintenance committee could work with a group within the department that would be comprised of our groundskeeping, our maintenance support services, and our urban forestry folks on developing what standards we would want that would make sense on Oahu, because it's not going to be identical to San Francisco. That just has more of a format that we can, help focus the discussion at that point. And so we would ask, if this seems to be the direction the full board is in support of, to refer this to the maintenance committee for us to be able to begin work with them. I do want to lay out also, when I talked about a 5-year plan, I'm not counting this as day one. I think what we would want to do with the maintenance committee, similar to the program committee, is we would have staff come forward and do a presentation on the baseline system that we have in place now. And then we can also talk about whether it would make sense to invite San Francisco to talk a little bit about the development lessons learned that they went through, and any recommendations that they might have, and then start the year one from that point.
Thank you very much, Director. Any questions for the board?
I appreciate the transparency this will provide when it does get completed. That's a couple questions, just because I am on the committee. Could you explain a little further who does the evaluation? Is it internal staff, or is it a third party? Is it another department in terms of the maintenance tracking? And I guess my second piece of that is, does the current department have the resources it has to do this, or is part of our committee work to also advocate for additional resources to implement?
Thank you. So as for the first part of the question, right now, what the department has that we passed out is an inspection system that it's just beginning. So we did do training of the initial draft of the inspection forms with the groundskeeper. The Parks Administrator has been updating that to get to the forms that you see now. She's been working with the district managers and the maintenance superintendents. So this is something that they're just starting on. But when you compare the maintenance or the inspection forms that they have with San Francisco, there is, more development that would need to be done. As far as the inspections, right now, again, we're just starting this internally in the department. San Francisco has had the advantage, their council passed a directive, I think in the early 2000s. And then it obtained the resources and the funding and then, you know, the development to get to the point where you see where they are today. So it's been a significant process. Their inspection is done by a separate office for that annual report, and the quarterly inspections is done by their Office of Controller. For the second question, I'll be shameless, we would like your help. Because we are talking about embarking on this without additional resources. So it would be, what can we do in-house? I think it's always good to have a little bit of work under your belt before you ask for assistance, because then you're a little bit more akamai about what it is that you need. But I think it's clear, in order for this to work well, especially with the reporting, and then to be able to analyze like those equity issues, the type, we'd need a software system. We'd need a way to be able to efficiently put these inspection reports into a system, to be able to monitor it and then to turn around. And that's partly because we're so big. You know, you can't do an inspection system of 400 parks and have it be stacks of paper in a room and let it be meaningful to any type of change in operational structure. So we would like to be working with the maintenance committee and ultimately to the back, when it reports to the full board, taking the lessons learned and then figuring out how to phase this in. We don't, you know, we anticipate it will take us time, maybe not as long as San Francisco, because we can work off of their lessons learned. But it certainly will take time to build up to that type of system.
Director, does San Francisco or other parks in other counties have like the software, like apps or systems that we can augment off of as well?
We will be asking. I did have a trip to San Francisco recently when I went to go visit my daughter, and the director there was very helpful. He brought in about 6 different administrators. We had a 2-hour meeting on a number of things. And so we've stayed in communication.
That's great.
And yeah, and we also have that National Park and Recreation Association. So we can reach out through there. Our park administrator, Christine Ching, has been going through the director school training there and is part of a cohort and can reach out to her contacts. Division of Urban Forestry is also members of a number of national organizations, and we could be talking with them as well. The city has a Department of IT, and the director there has been building a very comprehensive city system where instead of buying off-the-shelf software where you have, you know, hundreds of those across the city that don't talk with each other, he has a system within the city where we've been developing and designing. It does take time because we have limited resources, but we are working on another contract where part of the specs are the program has to be developed where the data can be downloaded into the city system. So we can find ways to do something, you know, that works for all parties.
Great, thank you. Yes, Katie.
I had a question. So in its full form, how do you envision, what parts of the reports do you envision being publicly available? So you mentioned some will, but at which point will this information be available to the public?
Oh, I would say all of it would be
All of it.
available to the public. Yeah,
Mhm.
sorry, I didn't, maybe I meant some
Oh, yeah.
as you go along. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that element will be interesting in the sense that people will feel heard and it will be good for transparency. But I'm wondering too about the potential for PR and stories that you don't want to be told. Just wondering how you're thinking about that.
You know, I'm thinking about this as a way of actually succeeding, because if you have a large park and you walk into it and you take your crew in there and they've cleaned everything and they've mowed and they've done everything and it looks fantastic from our perspective. It's a big area. Anybody could walk on in and say, well, look at that there. This place, you're not maintaining this. The nice thing about the report is it kind of identified through these standards, this is what we agree is unclean. So if we've taken care of these 5 things, you know, that means that that's clean. If we've taken care of these 10 things over here, you know, and then you have that grade. Now, it doesn't mean you can ignore other problems. Somebody may come in and make a complaint about something, but what San Francisco has done is they've taken their scores and they've slowly increased them over time by focusing on this. and they can say, we're doing a really good job on maintenance. We are above 90% on all of these parks. Yes, we'll take care of that over there. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And when we update standards, if we need to change them, you know, we can do so. But we can be successful as opposed to always being undermined that you're never successful. And so I think it's something that would actually be really helpful. And help the community understand too, the hard work that does go into these areas.
Yeah, Judith.
Yeah, as a member of this committee, I'm kind of excited, and I appreciate very much that you are acknowledging we have to focus on just a few things at first. And I think athletic fields and trees are interesting, right? Because they're so different in a way. Athletics fields are much more clearly defined, whereas trees occur in, like you said, in parks, but also botanical gardens, street trees. So I think the trees in particular, and I was kind of amused by the San Francisco list where they look at tree cleanliness and they list hypodermic needles and, you know, so I mean, clearly there are some things that may not necessarily make sense in their system either, but what question it raises for me is whether there may be an opportunity to team up with the GIS folks at DPP and maybe, because both athletics fields and trees have a spatial component, right? They're in a specific place, and GIS would allow you to not only map the location, but attach attributes to it, like the tree species and the tree condition. And perhaps eventually there would even be a option for the public on their cell phones to say, oh, this tree needs attention, or, you know, more of an interactive component. So anyway, I think maybe these are pipe dreams, but when Roxanne was on campus and, you know, the campus, UH campus now an arboretum, we have a map that has every single tree now mapped and visitors can even click on it and get information about the tree. Anyway, so just wanted to express my excitement, and I think these are really two great test cases, the trees and athletics fields.
Thank you. And I think as we get the committee together and Duff would be able to sit down with the maintenance committee, it can provide information. They do have a congressional grant. They are doing, you know, tree canopy coverage information and mapping. So there's certainly a lot that can be put into that. Again, this would be maintenance standards, but I think that there are other aspects about the increasing tree canopy and other things like that that can either move parallel with it or somehow maybe incorporated.
Yeah, especially with the trees, of course, tree maintenance has a lot to do with how you plant the trees in the first place and how long you, anyway, I have a lot to say about this, but maybe that's for the subcommittee.
Thank you. Other questions or discussion? Is there any objections to referring the work plan as stated to the committee to follow through with on provide quarterly reports to the full board on the progress? And are there any adjustments or alterations? Okay, seeing none, then you've got our full support in this one as well, and appreciate it. Thank you very much, Director and Deputy Director. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 6, which is public testimony. So we're going to now start with remote testifiers. There are none. Okay, then we are quickly going to move to in-person testifiers. Are there any in-person testifiers today? There are none. Okay, well, that was a quick testimony session. All right, agenda item number 6. So members of city boards and commissions are required to file annual financial disclosures by January 31st, 2024. So if you haven't done so, please do so shortly. Also, boards are also required to participate in the city's semi-annual training of the prevention of sexual harassment, anti-bias, inclusion, and ethics. And there will be an email from Dory that's coming out on more on that. So this is just friendly public service announcements. Also, parking for next month's committee meeting, DPR will be contacting us for vehicle information so that everyone can park at the Civic Center parking lot. That's very nice, you guys. Thank you. Versus street parking. So just to be aware of that. Oh, and then also the trainings that I mentioned earlier are going to be online so that we will be we're going to get a link for that. And then all trainings need to be completed by June 30th, 2024. So with that, is there any other business or anything else? Any other comments? Okay. Well, seeing that there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
And Sharon, sorry, you did mention the financial disclosures. Okay, thank you. Yeah, just the end of the month is coming up.
And for all those here, I have a little something for all the board members. So please see me before you leave. And for all of the team here, I have some refreshments in the back as well too. So please